Hello and welcome back to the Concept Checkup. The point of Concept Checkup is to dive into the Warframe forums or other source, look for a community-made Warframe concept, and talk about it. For the purpose of Concept Checkup, I will use my custom-built evaluating method known as AS. Without further ado, let's begin the checkup. For today's checkup we have Lycan, the Kubrow Warframe. Lycan was created by Eliasdred on the Warframe forums, who is created as a melee-based warframe with sustain kind of like Garuda's. Lycan possesses above-average health, average shield capacity, average energy capacity, slightly above-average armor, and above-average sprint speed. Lycan's passive is Feral. Lycan deals 25% more damage on all ground-based finishers, and upon killing an enemy with the ground finisher, gains health regeneration and a small attack speed buff for 5 seconds. Although on the surface this passive seems like a pretty standard small thematic bonus for a warframe, this is actually how Lycan sustains himself for the most part, and that's not exactly a good thing. I'll talk about this more later on. Lycan's first ability is Tear. Lycan vaults to a target enemy, knocking them down and dealing slash damage. Obviously Tear is how Lycan is capable of setting himself up to proc his passive for the health regen, which is quite understandable. One enemy, one proc of 25% health regeneration. Not including the slash proc it applies, the damage seems to be rather low, but then again this doesn't really matter since Tear isn't intended to be used for the damage, but rather for the easy passive proc it can apply. Lycan's second ability is Stalk. Lycan marks an enemy, who suffers decreased accuracy and takes more damage from all sources. Furthermore, all additional enemies within range of the marked enemy are also affected by Stalk. If Stalk can be applied onto bosses and Eidolons, I can completely see Lycan becoming standard for hunting Eidolons. If not, honestly I don't think that reduced accuracy and increased damage from all sources will be very useful against enemies below level 80 and such, because other nuke frames such as Saren or Mesa already dominate this zone of enemy level. Against higher level enemies, Stalk would certainly be useful when you consider that hardcore enemies such as a level 115 heavy gunner would be technically dealing less damage due to having reduced accuracy from Stalk. However, Stalk seems to be hard countered by nullifiers, meaning that even then, Stalk doesn't seem very practical except against Infested and Grineer exclusively. Then again, that's just me. Lycan's third ability is Full Moon, a toggle skill. Upon activation, Lycan loses all of his shields and 50% of his total armor, but becomes immune to all damage for 4 seconds. During this period, Lycan and all nearby allies are healed for 100% of all damage they take. Afterward, Lycan and all nearby allies gain health per second and receive a damage buff, with Full Moon draining energy over a second, but increasing for each ally under this effect. Full Moon is weird because this is the kind of ability that would have been great years ago, but nowadays isn't very powerful. For one, Lycan forcibly loses all of his shields and half of his armor capacity in exchange for only 4 seconds of damage immunity, which just seems like a worse version of Harrow's penance ability. Additionally, although the damage buff that Lycan gains from Full Moon is considerable, the heal per second that it applies is pitiful, because not only does it lower value than Oberon's renewal, but it also drains even more energy if it's applied onto numerous allies. I think it would be better if Lycan could convert a portion of absorbed damage during his invulnerability period into temporary armor, that way players would be encouraged to deliberately take as much damage as possible. Lastly, Full Moon would be significantly better if the heal per second increased if it were applied onto an entire squad, that way the immense energy cost would be justified. Lycan's fourth ability is Pack Hunt. Lycan summons 4 feral Kubrows, each of which have scaling health and armor, while also losing a percentage of their total health every second. I understand that the spawned Kubrows have scaling health and armor, but if the damage does not scale as well, then this ability is useless aside from just using the spawned Kubrows as disposable minions or cannon fodder. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, but then again, that depends on if the AI for these Kubrows is as good as Wukong's Celestial Twin, or as bad as Atlas's Rumblers. Anyways, here are Lycan's scores. The concept of a werewolf warframe sounds cool, but overall what has been presented here seems to be lackluster for the most part, but that doesn't mean it can't be improved. For my personal thoughts, I think that Lycan is simply a case of a concept that years ago could have been great, but in this day and age falls short. Again, that doesn't necessarily make him terrible, that just means he needs to be updated, especially on his third and fourth abilities. Interesting idea, but with aged execution. Thank you for watching.